The forum will next hear the voluntary national review by Kenya, and I invite Her Excellency Chargé d'Affaires ad interim at the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Kenya to the United Nations to make a presentation.
I thank you, Mr. President. Kenya's Voluntary National Review, VNR 2024, is our third since 2017. It demonstrates Kenya's commitment in implementing the 2030 Agenda. The 2024 Voluntary National Report focuses on assessing the institutional and policy environment necessary for implementing SDGs and the progress so far. Kenya has put in place necessary structures as well as an enabling policy environment for SDGs implementation. The report shows mixed results on SDGs progress, with some indicators progressing, stagnating, or regressing. Multiple global crises such as geopolitical conflicts, climate change, and economic disruptions continue to impede SDGs implementation. Despite these challenges, Kenya remains committed to the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. I will now hand over to my colleague, Monica, to proceed with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Ambassador. Kenya has mainstreamed the SDGs implementation in the national and subnational planning frameworks. We have at the apex the Kenya Vision 2030, which is implemented in 5-year successive medium-term development plans. Currently, we are implementing the 4th medium-term plan, 2023-2027, under the Kenya Vision 2030, which has integrated the SDGs and the current government's bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Kenya has a devolved system of governance with the devolved units called county governments. In this regard, the 47 counties also develop 5-year county integrated development plans, which are aligned to the medium-term plans and also integrates the SDGs. The medium-term plans are implemented through the line ministries, departments, agencies, strategic plans, and sector-specific strategies. The SDGs implementation in Kenya is also aligned to the regional and international development obligations that Kenya subscribes to, like Africa Agenda 2063. This presentation focuses on the 5 SDGs being reviewed under this HLPF. Under Goal 1, No Poverty, we are focused on Target 1.1. As shown in the graph, poverty rates spiked in 2020 due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, but declined marginally in 2021 due to the various social protection programs put in place by the government. Some of the policy interventions the government has put in place include Inua Jamii, which means uplifting families, consolidated cash transfer program, affirmative action funds and opportunities like the Youth Enterprise Fund, Women Enterprise Fund, to mention a few. Financial inclusion programs, dubbed the Hustler Fund, which aims to provide access to financial services to the informal sector. The fund's objectives include alleviating unemployment, eradicating poverty, boosting micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, providing affordable credit, among others, and the National Development Fund for people living with disabilities, which supports the provision of assistive devices and services to PWs in Kenya to enable individuals to function in society. Under Goal 2, No Hunger, we are focused on Indicator 2.12. As indicated on the graph, in 2020, the national percentage of food insecure people was 60%, which declined marginally in 2021 to 57.5%, but showed an upward trend in 2022. This implies that a big proportion of the population is still food insecure, with the rural population most affected than the urban population. Some of the policy interventions are the National Fertilizer Subsidy Program, which is meant to provide low-cost fertilizers to farmers with the objective of lowering the cost of production while boosting food production. Crop insurance to reduce the vulnerability of farmers and other value chain actors and cushion farmers against crop losses. Food security and crop diversification, hunger safety net, and investment in irrigation, among others. Under Goal 13, Climate Action, we focused on indicator 13.1.1. As indicated, we see that there is an improvement on this indicator, realizing a downward trend from 2015 to 2021, indicating that there's a slight reduction in the number of deaths and persons affected by disaster during the reporting period. Some of the policy interventions include National Ecosystem Restoration Program, which champions national tree growing, aimed at growing 15 billion trees by the year 2032. Kenya Climate Change Adaptation Program, greening of energy, transport, and digital systems, which aims to lower carbon emissions, carbon credits and green financing, and financing locally led climate action programs, FLOCA. FLOCA is a Government of Kenya program jointly supported by the World Bank and other development partners, aimed at delivering locally led climate resilience actions and strengthening county and national governments' capacity to manage climate risk. This is done in partnership with county governments and communities, targeting all the 47 counties, including urban, peri-urban, and rural communities. Under Goal 16, Peace, Justice, and Strong Institutions, we are focused on indicator 16.10.1. Generally, the components under this indicator are all on a downward trend. For example, enforced disappearance, killings, and torture were almost 0% as per the 2022 statistics. Some of the policy interventions are mobile and virtual courts to ensure faster dispensation of cases, bringing administration of justice closer to the affected people in a timely manner. One-stop shop platforms, 53 Huduma centers have been established across the counties and regions, aimed at bringing public service delivery closer to the people. Huduma means service. This has ensured that public service is easily accessible throughout the country without need for citizens to travel long distances to access public services. Disarmament of illegal firearms and registration of both government and private-owned firearms in the country to ensure illegal firearms is not in the hands of unlicensed citizens, and county peer review mechanism aimed at sharing best practices among the county governments. Under Goal 17, Partnership for Goals, we are focused on indicator 17.1, which has two indicators. As shown in the graph, the blue line indicates the total government revenue as a proportion of GDP, which slightly declined between 2022 and 2023 due to the various endogenous and exogenous shocks. On the other hand, the orange line indicates the proportion of domestic budget funded by domestic taxes, which shows a slight upward trend from 2021 to 2023, indicating a bigger proportion of our domestic budget is financed by domestic revenues. Some of the policy interventions include medium-term revenue strategy aimed at improving domestic resource mobilization and fiscal space for delivery of the country's economic transformation agenda and the SDGs. The annual SDG multi-stakeholder conference, which brings various stakeholders to discuss progress and challenges in the implementation of the SDGs. The international, continental, and regional integration aimed at improving trade and movement of people across the regions, and public-private partnerships, which ensures diversification of our sources of financing, just to mention a few. Mr. President, in conclusion, Kenya is committed to accelerating SDGs implementation through strengthening institutional frameworks at the national and county government level, enhancing partnerships and collaborations with development partners and other stakeholders, and strengthening the national statistical system and domestic resource mobilization. Thank you. Asante sana.
I thank the Chargé d'Affaires d'Intérim at the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Kenya to the United Nations and her team for the presentation. We will now hear comments and questions from states and other participants, delegations who wish to intervene in the interactive discussion, including those who previously expressed their interest to ask questions to any of the VNR presentations, are invited to press the microphone button on the console. Before I give the floor to the first speaker, I would like to remind delegations to kindly limit their interventions to 2 minutes each. And I now would like to give the floor to the representative of Denmark. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, we congratulate all three governments of Georgia, Palau, and Kenya for their presentations today. We'll address our comments to the government of Kenya. Denmark congratulates the government of Kenya for presenting their third voluntary national review and expresses its appreciation for the close and long-standing bilateral relationship between our two nations. Denmark commends the progress outlined in the report, particularly in the areas of clean water, clean energy, and health. We also note the persistent issues of inequality addressed in the report. Based on the findings and lessons learned of this VNR, how will the government look at adapting current policies and enacting new initiatives aimed at further advancing equality and reaching the furthest behind? Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Denmark, and I would like to give the floor to the representative of Finland.
Thank you very much, Chair. Finland is congratulating also all the three countries, and we pose our question to Kenya. We thank Kenya for its third voluntary national review and commend it for significant progress in its pursuit of the Sustainable Development Goals in several areas, such as gender equality, education access, and climate action. We appreciate Kenya's multi-stakeholder approach for implementing the SDGs. By ensuring ownership and creating awareness, Kenya is making the SDGs everybody's business, just as they should be. Gender equality and inclusive education are vitally important for achieving the SDGs, and Finland and Kenya have a long-lasting support in these actions. We are also happy to note that Kenya's work for enhancing digitalization. While new technologies develop, it is important to ensure women and girls, as well as marginalized groups, also get access and benefit from them. At the same time, preventing and eliminating online gender-based violence is of crucial importance. Food security remains one of the biggest challenges. Climate change, ongoing conflicts such as Russia's war in Ukraine, inflation and volatility in commodity prices continue to impact food security situation in Kenya. Addressing these challenges is crucial for ensuring long-term sustainability action. What measures is Kenya taking to ensure access of all citizens to nutritious and sufficient food? Thank you.
I thank the representative of Finland for your intervention. Next in my list, the representative of NGO's major group. The floor is yours.
Honorable delegates, it's a great pleasure to address this esteemed gathering at the high-level political forum. Today we unite to discuss critical issues impacting our progress towards sustainable development goals and to develop innovative solutions to accelerate our efforts to meet these goals by 2030. We commend the government of Kenya and the Interagency Technical Working Committee that we are part of for the dedication in conducting 3 voluntary national reviews since 2017, showcasing a strong commitment to transparency and inclusive development. However, to enhance the impact of these VNRs, we recommend strengthening coordination mechanisms to ensure effective implementation and monitoring. Our call to action is for the post-VNR implementation process. The completion of the VNR is a significant milestone, yet challenges still remain. Observations from this year's VNR show progress in some areas, but stagnation and regression in other due to crises linked to climate change, fluctuating global economics. We urge the government to prioritize implementing recommendations from the VNR local reviews CSO's progress report with actionable plans, timelines, and achievable sustainable development outcomes. Engaging youth and fostering innovation. Meaningful youth engagement is crucial for development. Our youth offer innovation and new perspective essential for progress. We urge the government of Kenya to create transparent and accountable platforms for young people to contribute ideas, solutions, harnessing their potentials to accelerate the SDGs. We recommend our government to have intentional integration of citizen-generated data into mainstream data systems. The realization of this intended outcome is hinged on the capacity of civil society to generate quality data. We therefore call upon the government to make direct investments in the capacity of strengthening civil society. In conclusion, we call on the government of Kenya to prioritize growing the economy, jobs, building better lives, fighting corruption, and combating climate change. Thank you very much.
I thank representative of NGO, some major group. Next on my list is representative of Ghana, followed by representative of Russian Federation. The floor is.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. First of all, Ghana would like to commend all the three country speakers for their commitment to Agenda 2030. Specifically to Kenya, Ghana again commend you on your commitment not only to Agenda 2030, but also EU Agenda 2063. As Ghana prepare for the third voluntary national review in 2025, we have a lot to learn and share with you. We are of the view that whilst countries are preparing for the voluntary national review, we should also be interested in voluntary local review. Now, the question to Kenya. In the recent past, Kenya has faced severe climate crisis, characterized by heavy rainfall and resultant flooding. What innovative strategies have the government of Kenya deployed to combat climate change in Kenya? I thank you.
I thank you, representative of Ghana. Now I give the floor to Ms. Monica Asuna, Director of Planning at the National Treasury of Kenya.
Thank you, Mr. President. Starting with the question from the distinguished delegate from Norway, the civil society organization in Kenya is diverse, but there are those who are focused on SDGs. We have the Kenya SDGs Forum, who is a member of our multi-stakeholder engagement forum, among other civil society organizations, and they've supported the government in convening various dialogue platforms and also in reviewing progress in SDGs implementation. Therefore, we work closely with the civil societies who are focused on SDGs implementation, and they also engaged in the review of the SDGs. We also worked closely with them during the development of this VNR report. To the question from the distinguished delegate from Denmark, we wish to say that the Kenya Constitution under Article 27 provides for equality, which includes the full and equal enjoyment of all rights and fundamental freedoms of Kenyans. So first, devolution was also meant to address inequality by decentralizing power and development of the devolved units. Under Article 204 of the Constitution, we also established the Equalization Fund, which provides that 1.5% of the national annual ordinary revenue collected is allocated towards basic services as water, roads, health facilities, and electricity in marginalized areas. Another key initiative is the implementation of the gender policy, which strengthens institutions and mechanisms that support gender equality. Economic empowerment programs for women also provide access to financial resources, entrepreneurial training, and market opportunities. So under affirmative action as well, the Constitution provides also leadership positions for women, and we have positions of women representative in the 47 counties, and they are part of the legislature in that they sit in the National Assembly. This addresses gender equality as well as economic inequality. Also another is the access to government procurement opportunities, which reserves 30% of all procurement at both national and county government levels to women, youth, and persons with disabilities. This is just to mention a few. We can maybe continue with the discussion later on. Responding to the question from the distinguished delegate from Finland, we also wish to state that under the Constitution, Article 43 provides for the right of every person to the highest attainable standard of health, to be free from hunger, and also to have adequate food. of acceptable quality, among other social rights. The current government is implementing the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, which prioritizes agriculture as one of its core pillars. So Kenya is committed to food security because agriculture is the backbone of the economy, with the 21.8% contribution to the GDP. So to address maybe underlying causes of food insecurity and malnutrition, just to mention a few, we have what we had mentioned, the National Fertilizer Subsidy Program, the Hunger Safety Net Program, National Agricultural and Rural Inclusive Growth Project, the National Nutrition Action Plan, and the school feeding program. Just to elaborate, the school feeding program is meant to retain learners in school, but also provides nutritious meals from kids from disadvantaged families. This is also being rolled out by the county governments. From the question from the distinguished delegate from Ghana, we wish to respond that the unprecedented climate change impacts with extreme and unpredictable weather patterns have posed threats to people's lives and livelihood globally, with Kenya not exempted. So adaptation and resilience, Kenya remains committed, and indeed climate change is one of our priority actions. And you can recall in 2023, Kenya hosted the African Climate Summit, where a number of interventions or resolutions were made. So some of the interventions is the National Ecosystem Restoration Program, which we mentioned, growing 15 billion trees by the year 2032. Then we have also the financing locally led climate action. Other initiatives also include the greening of energy. So Kenya is also really keen on green energy and also the renewable energy. So that is really the focus, and we are diversifying in that area, basically to reduce low carbon emissions. So in this area, continuous capacity building of the meteorological department to ensure that weather predictability is accurate, especially on early warning signs, is also a matter of priority to the government. Just to note the comment from the major groups, we take note of the comments. We wish to say that Kenya champions inclusive development partnerships, and we look forward to working with various stakeholders in accelerating progress in SDGs implementation. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank you, Director of Planning at the National Treasury of Kenya, for your response, and I would like to thank our distinguished presenters of Palau, Georgia, and Kenya for their responses. I also thank delegations for their valuable contributions and the work of interpreters.